Hi, my name is Dr. Joseph Lau. I would like to speak with you today about proactive discipline. In particular, I'd like to focus on the 8 keys to the proactive discipline of children. We can define proactive discipline as caregiver behaviors that are intended to prevent child misbehaviors from occurring. They're more advanced than reactive forms of discipline because they involve techniques for avoiding the misbehaviors. They involve techniques for making the misbehaviors less likely to occur, and they involve techniques that will enable us to think ahead of time to how to react, and so react more effectively than if we just use the reactive discipline approaches. And so there are a number of these techniques that I'd like to talk about, and I'd like to begin by the most important of all, and that is simply to set the example you want your child to follow. It's difficult to overestimate this, but the idea is that children tend to follow their adult caregivers. This is true for almost every species on Earth. Children learn from their parents. And so they're going to look at you, they're going to follow your example, and whatever you do, they're going to want to do as well. Whatever example you set, they're going to want to follow. And so it's very important that you set the proper example. Now, sometimes adults will engage in behaviors and they'll tell their children not to do those behaviors because the children are too young. And so you have to be a little bit careful with that, because while that certainly is true and appropriate in many cases, in some cases what's going to happen is the child's going to think, well, when I get old enough, then I'll do that. Or let me keep trying to do that and eventually I'll get away with it when I'm old enough. And so there are various ways your child may still want to follow your example even though you tell the child not to. So keep that in mind. But in general, you want to set the best example to avoid these kinds of problems from occurring in the first place, at least in terms of the child copying you or imitating you. Another thing you should do is to develop a disciplinary plan before your child misbehaves. In other words, don't wait for the misbehavior to occur, but plan ahead of time. Think about what's the most appropriate way to react to different kinds of misbehaviors. That way, when the misbehavior occurs, you'll be able to react not out of frustration or anger or some other negative emotion, but rather out of prudence, out of forethought, out of some better idea of what you want, so that you have a better chance of achieving your goals by using techniques that are not determined by the spur of the moment emotions. Rather, they're pre-planned ahead of time. The third thing you should consider is to determine and communicate the consequences of misbehavior ahead of time. This is related to the last idea, except that it involves talking to the child. It involves letting the child know what the consequences of misbehaviors are going to be, so the child knows what to expect. A lot of parents will often involve their child in setting those rules or setting those consequences or punishments, so that this is effective as well, because children then have a role in setting the rules and they're better able to keep the rules in mind when it comes time to deciding if they want to misbehave. Another idea is to give your child a fine reputation to live up to. A lot of parents will label their children as a bad boy or bad girl, and I think a lot of times they don't realize how much harm they're doing, because your children are going to believe you. If you tell your son or daughter that he or she is a bad boy or bad girl, they're going to believe you, and what may happen is that that child may grow up believing that it's a bad child. And so I've known adults who still believe what their parents told them, still believe they're bad or stupid or whatever negative term the parent used to describe that individual. So think carefully, and if you're going to label your child, find labels that are positive that your child will want to live up to. One of the most important things is to help your child develop self-control. And so the fifth suggestion I'll offer you is to nurture self-discipline in your child. That is, help your child learn to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, for oneself and others, even when he or she doesn't feel like it. Now, it's difficult to overestimate the importance of self-discipline. There are many adults who fall short in this area, and unfortunately there are many elders who reach the period of late adulthood and find that they haven't lived up to their potential. Many people find that if only they paid a little bit more attention, if only they'd been a little bit more disciplined, they would have accomplished a lot more in their lives. They would have been a lot more successful. And so if we can help children develop those kinds of self-control early on, then that child's chances of succeeding in life are going to be multiplied significantly. So think about how you can nurture your child's ability to control his or her own behavior, especially in a way that is constructive. Now, keep in mind that your child's capacity for self-control grows with his brain and experience. That is, the part of the brain that handles self-control, the prefrontal cortex, is not fully mature during childhood. In fact, there are some studies showing that it doesn't fully mature until middle adulthood, and so, or at least early adulthood. And so you'll find that some scientists say that that part of the brain matures between maybe 26 and about 38 years of age, depending on which study you listen to or pay attention to. And so if that's the case, then it means that your child may not be able to fully control his or her behavior until that age. However, there are experiences you can provide that help your child practice self-discipline and practice self-control. And so here, the biggest idea I can offer you is to help your child practice self-discipline. Now, this is obviously a lot easier than it sounds. Actually, it's a lot harder than it sounds. Because the thing is, one can tell the child to be self-disciplined and children go ahead and do what they want to do anyway. And so the thing is, how do you help your child practice self-discipline? And the most obvious answer is just practice not telling them what to do. Practice not controlling your child. Now, here, I'm not advocating a sort of laissez-faire, let your child do whatever they want idea, but rather I'm suggesting that you give your child opportunities to control his or her own behavior. You give your child a chance to control his or her behavior and see what happens. Now, you might want to consider starting with small, age-appropriate things. For example, making sure that he or she holds the spoon or fork properly when eating, or that he or she puts the clothes on properly, or eventually maybe assign responsibilities. In most cultures around the world, they start assigning children responsibilities by the time they're 7 or 8 years of age. And so you might have them take out the garbage or clean the dishes or put something away. Whatever it is, to give them some kind of responsibility and hold them accountable for that responsibility. Make sure they follow through and that they do it. Now, eventually you're going to find that there will be occasions when your child doesn't follow through, doesn't fulfill his or her responsibilities. And so on those occasions, I suggest you provide guidance, not punishment, guidance. And so here, the thing is that if you're going to punish your child every time he or she misbehaves, the punishment is probably not going to be as effective as providing guidance. Now, you want to help your child behave appropriately, and so you want to provide guidance to help your child do that. And so in this regard, guidance is going to be more effective than punishment. So in other words, if your child falls short, help them. Tell them what they did wrong, or help them figure out what they did wrong. And once they know what they did wrong, then they'll be in a position to improve. And if you have to provide more guidance by helping them figure out what they could do better or how they could improve their behavior, that's fine. That's part of your job as a parent to help your child. And so these are a few of the ideas. Obviously, there are many more possibilities. For more information, you could check the Parenting Literacy website. That's at www.parentingliteracy.com. And so there are many articles there on raising children, and there's one article on how to discipline children. Or if you want a lot more information about how to discipline children, you should check out the Discipline of Children course at udemy.com. The Discipline of Children course is approximately a 2-hour video course, and it goes into a lot more detail about how to discipline children. For example, it goes into considering what is discipline, inviting you to think about what role discipline plays in the way you want to raise your child. It invites people to think about the goals they have for disciplining their children. It involves a number of different things, for example, different kinds of discipline. I mentioned reactive discipline a little while ago, but there's also proactive discipline, there's self-discipline. Also, it includes a 53-page workbook. The workbook includes a lot of exercises. It includes a lot of ideas for how you can discipline your child. And it includes a lot of provocative questions to get you to think about how you want to use discipline effectively. It also includes a pre-test and a post-test. And it comes with the money-back guarantee as well as lifetime access, so that as I go about updating the program every now and then to incorporate new, more up-to-date information, you'll always have access to that program and you'll be able to keep coming back over and over again. And so please do check that out. Oh, you know what? I think I can do better than that. I think I'll go so far as to offer you a discount. I'm going to see if I can put a link just below this video, and if you use that link and the code I'll provide, then you should be able to get that course at Udemy for a significant discount. Again, that's the Discipline of Children course, so please do check that out. If you've liked what you've heard, please do click on like, and by all means, please do subscribe. I'll be putting out a lot more information about parenting, not just about discipline, but basic parenting skills, advanced parenting skills, and many other ideas about parenting that should help you become a more effective parent. So thank you again for listening. Have a wonderful day.